At this point, I've reviewed a lot of 1440p high refresh rate monitors. Some TN, some VA, some IPS, and I've claimed perfection on a few of them. But now that I have this, I can't understand why you would buy literally anything else. Let me explain why. But first, if you haven't already, consider subscribing for more videos like this one every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. First off is its size and resolution. It's a 1440p 27-inch panel, which for me is really the sweet spot for display sizing and resolution as well. It means that you can sit a good distance away and, watch movies or YouTube videos, or you can sit nice and up close and do some high FPS gaming, and it all still works. Next, it's an IPS panel, which is kind of rare for the 1440p high refresh rate market, and is normally resigned to the pretty premium, pretty high-end options. This though is incredible. It's a beautiful panel to look at, whether you're doing content consumption, content creation, or gaming. And what's really impressive is the viewing angles, especially on the side to sides, which is where you're probably going to need them the most. You have just incredible. You can see from pretty much entirely side on, and the only reason that you can't see from entirely side on is that the front acrylic panel starts creating reflections at that acute of an angle, whereas it's not the panel itself that just can't display that far. It also has really impressive colors. Testing with my Datacolor Spider X, it reported well over 100% coverage of the sRGB spectrum, about 89% of the Adobe RGB spectrum, and a whopping 95% of the DCI-P3 spectrum. That is almost an exact match, if not an exact match, to the Gigabyte FI27Q-P, which is a much more expensive monitor, but seems to have pretty much the exact same panel. Oh, and the panel can get to around about 320 nits of brightness in its SDR mode, and if you do want to use it with its HDR400 certification, which honestly is the lowest tier that they can do and isn't really recommended, it can get over 400 nits of peak brightness in HDR mode, so that is a nice addition. Of course, it's also a high refresh rate 144Hz monitor with FreeSync, which means you get an incredibly smooth and responsive experience both on AMD GPUs and now on NVIDIA too. It was a really nice experience to game on. It was incredibly smooth. Obviously the crispness and the size of the monitor makes for just a really enjoyable experience. And even the viewing angles did help me in even just gaming while filming, as I tend to film at a bit of an odd angle so that you guys can see the screen, and I tend to sit, very side onto it, but it was a very, very nice experience. Now the panel does ghost just a little bit, especially on the sort of light to dark transitions, although it's not something that I noticed in games. Looking at the UFO test, you can see that there is a trail behind the UFO, but there are some settings you can tweak if you want to change that. Now in terms of the panel's response time itself, it looks to be frankly amazing, 4 milliseconds black to white, which is kind of incredible. That'd be good for a TN monitor, but for IPS, that's just fantastic. Now, its release time going from white to black, like I said, is a bit slower and is more like 15 milliseconds, but you can change some settings like the overdrive if you want that to be the black to white to be even faster, and you can also turn on backlight strobing for a little less motion blur if you want to, although you will have to disable FreeSync. Where it gets even more impressive though is with its input lag. I was testing with my Time Sleuth, and its maximum setting of 1080p 60 FPS, it reported just 1.8 milliseconds of input lag at the top of the display. That's frankly incredible, and I think makes it the second fastest monitor I've ever tested. And considering this is an IPS panel as well, that just makes it even more incredible. Now there is a couple of things that do let the monitor down just a little bit, and the biggest one is its stand. The stand is what I would call the cheapest thing that they could put on that just sort of props the monitor up. It really isn't fantastic. The base itself is pretty small, which is good, but it does have a large foot out the back, which means you can't sit it flush to a wall. Also, it only has tilt adjust and nothing else, and it also shakes like a tuning fork. Any level of motion on your desk and the thing wobbles like mad, which means you will want to use the VESA mount that's included, which actually thanks to the price, that shouldn't be a problem. See, what Acer have done here is take what is clearly an incredibly impressive panel and I suppose monitor in and of itself, and clearly good enough to rival even Gigabyte's FI27Q-P, which sells for about £600 here in the UK. And then they've put what I can only describe as a disgustingly cheap price tag on it. This monitor sells for just £360 at the time of filming in the UK on Amazon. I'm shocked by how incredible that is. You get a 1440p, 144Hz, fast IPS with FreeSync monitor for £360. Yes, AOC's CQ27G2U is cheaper, around about 280 when it's actually in stock, but you get a significantly better monitor here, and while the stand does kinda suck, you can clearly afford to throw in a monitor arm while you're at it. You don't get many bells and whistles with this. The I/O doesn't have any USB hubs, for example, just 2 HDMI ports and 1 display port. The on-screen menu is pretty sparse, save for the gaming options, and there is no RGB in sight on this thing. But honestly, for that price, I just don't care. This is a top tier panel mated with a top tier scaler too, and so for this price point, this is an incredible value and I cannot do anything other than highly recommend it. Now with that said, those are my thoughts, but I would love to hear yours in the comments down below. Out of all of the 1440p monitors that I've checked out, for me personally, I think this one might be the best one, especially at that price, but I would love to hear your thoughts on that in the comments down below. Now I'm going to leave a link to this in the description down below if you want to check it out. That will be an Amazon affiliate link that will take you to your local Amazon store where you can see pricing when and where you watch this, because it can and does vary. There's also a whole load of other links in the description you can check out, from merch or hoodies or t-shirts like this one, ad-free videos on Patreon, or just a load of other different affiliate links for people like Overclocked UK if you're buying from them, VPN options, Streamlabs OBS, Humble Bundle, and a whole lot else. And I'm going to leave some more videos over there. I'm watching the display wobble as I point to stuff. Including the AOC one if you do want to check that out. Obviously it is a cheaper monitor by what, 80 or so pounds, but not quite as good. Either way, I'll leave that there, you can check it out. But that's pretty much it. If you have any questions, feel free to leave those in the comments down below, but otherwise we'll see you all in the next video.